What is good and what is up, y'all? It's your boy here, Jay, back and better than ever with another episode of Padres Banter, playoff edition of Padres Banter, as the Padres go ahead and sweep the Arizona Diamondbacks to cap off their 2025 season in Petco Park, and now are in Wrigley Field, Chicago, Illinois, to face the Chicago Cubs for their first series in the wild card starting today. So we're going to get into all things sweep and all things preview to this playoff edition of Padres Banter. All right, here. Let's get into it. What is up, y'all? And welcome back to another episode of Padres Banter. It is playoff time, y'all. Yes, sir. Playoff baseball is back. October is back, even though it is not October yet. We got some playoff baseball in store for us, especially for us Padre fans. Man, feels good to be back in the postseason, and I'm excited, y'all. Got the Cubs first in line, and one game at a time. Like let's not look too far ahead of ourselves. One game at a time. We got Nick Pivetta on the mound today, and a 3-game series, wild card series. Not what we wanted, obviously, when it comes to finishing the season, with the division and all that being said, but finishing with 90 wins, finishing with the sweep. After we go ahead and, do that, now we enter the playoffs on a good note. I'm feeling good about this team, y'all. I'm feeling good. Optimism is the best, choice of words I feel like I have for myself right now. But even though with all the injuries that we've had, I just feel a level of optimism in this fire, in this grit, in this team. And we'll see how we play out, right? This is a great Cubs team that we're facing off against in the postseason. This is no slouch. Obviously, every postseason team is somewhat good because of the fact that they're in the postseason, you know, in general. But with that being said, just going ahead and focusing on what we need to do, the details, right? The runners in scoring position, hitting with runners in scoring position has been a struggle bus for us lately. We'll see if we can turn the page on that. Going ahead and trying to get an extra couple innings from our starters. I think that our starters, in years past have been a lot of production from them, a lot of production from the innings aspect when you look at it from that perspective. But now we're looking at our bullpen. So I'm just really hoping that we can kind of, give our bullpen a little bit of a break when it comes to this postseason and not really relying on them the entirety of the way, and really getting some innings out of Nick Pivetta, Darvish, and Dylan Cease, who are going to be all starting in this series. And Darvish will be that game 3 if necessary. But like I said, just focusing on that, hoping that we focus on the details. Obviously, we're great at playing small ball, focusing on getting those sacrifices down and not getting ahead of ourselves. But with all that being said, we have a playoff series in store, and we have playoff baseball to watch for our Friar faithful. And I'm juiced, y'all. I'm juiced. I'm about to get ready to go ahead and go watch this game with my sister. We got a 12:08 first pitch, so make sure you guys are tuned in. But with all that being said, let's talk about the sweep and how we got to this very moment, as well as the fact that we are here, y'all. We're here, playoff baseball, and let's get into a little preview of what we have in store for us in this 3-game wildcard series in Chicago against the Chicago Cubs. So let's get into it. It's playoff time, Friar faithful, as the Padres are in Chicago as we speak to get ready for their wild card 3-game series versus the Chicago Cubs in Wrigley Field. Already having full practice under the Chicago sun, the Padres left after their victory on Sunday in San Diego over the Arizona Diamondbacks to capture their second straight 90-win season. The first time in Padres history they have gone back-to-back seasons with 90 wins. It's go time now. All prior failures and even successes don't matter. It's a new season. It's playoff season, as all that matters is the game that is today. Padres look to pull off what some would see as an upset, but many see as the Padres is favored, even in Chicago. But the Cubs are no pushover of a team, having a home record of 50-31. Regardless of how things have played out the last month with not winning the division and having injuries, the goal at hand stays the same. Win one game at a time and see how far you can go and try and win a World Series for the city of San Diego. That being said, game 1 is today, like I said, at 12:08 Pacific time. So that's what matters most at this point in time. But before we get into that, let's get into a quick three-game analysis of how we got here in a sweep of Arizona and how we got 90 wins this season, even though that series didn't matter. So let's get into game one as the Padres go ahead and take game one of this series in a commanding fashion, taking the lead in the fourth inning with help of a Fernando Tatis Jr. grand slam Diego to put the Padres up 5-2 in the inning, while Darvish had a great start going 5 innings pitched, 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 4 Ks on 79 pitches, an effective outing to say the least, and reasons why we still see Darvish in game 3 in Chicago. The bats were alive, out hitting the D-backs 12-8. But again, the runners in scoring position bug going 3 for 11 with 10 left on base in game one. Maryland Tatis also had defensive assists, but still the bats with runners in scoring position were dead. Padres ended up getting the win, and that's all that mattered. So moving on to game two, the Padres would go ahead and get the bats going early as they scored 5 runs in the first 2 innings with help with another Fernando Tatis Jr. home run. This time in the first inning, King would make his second start, I believe, back from the IL, going 2 2/3 inning pitched, one hit, no earned runs, 2 walks, 3 Ks on 49 pitches. The bats would be alive, scoring 5 runs and 7 hits, out hitting the D-backs again 7-5, but still 1 for 4 with runners in scoring position and 4 left on base. Positive signs from Xander after his stint from the IL though, and the Padres would get the dub. And then moving on to game 3, the Padres looked to capture 90 wins and did so, going ahead and finishing the season on a high note and sweeping an in-division foe in the Arizona Diamondbacks 12-4. Also a great start from JP Sears to end the year, going 5 2/3 innings pitched, 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 4 Ks on 113 innings pitched, which I feel was a good outing for him against a good D-backs lineup, even though it was an unmotivated lineup. Having the same amount of hits as the D-backs, the Padres did 11, and managed to drive those runs in 7 for 14, 500 on the day with runners in scoring position and 5 left on base for those opportunities. In the end, the Padres got the dub and finished the year off how they wanted to with a 90-win season. And like I said, first time in Padres history, the team has won 90 games in back-to-back seasons and against teams you want to play before playoff time. Teams who are fighting or in playoffs and want valid competition. And I think these games were great to get our swings off, and the Padres, especially for Tatis, and a couple home runs. Seeing the ball leave the yard was big time for him, especially with this, before the playoffs. I think that was just a huge, momentum and confidence swing for him, and we'll see how that plays out going forward. And in Wrigley, he loves hitting in Wrigley. Also, Manny and Jackson Merrill and a host of others who were contributing to seeing the ball get down for a hit is a big time, especially against the Cubs team who knows and likes to drive in runs, y'all. Being the 3rd in the league in RBIs. This is the Cubs. 3rd in the league in RBIs. 5th in runs scored. 3rd in stolen bases in the league, and 5th fewest strikeouts in the league, but 2nd behind the Padres, right? So it's this team knows how to score runs. They don't strike out, and they put the ball in play. So we're going to have to make plays. I'm not concerned about our defense. I'm more concerned about us putting up the runs and the run production that we need to in order to compete with this team on a game-to-game, inning-to-inning rather basis. I think that we're capable of it. I'm not doubting our lineup, but we have seen this Padres team at times go in lulls. All that being said, we will have to be very, very focused on driving in these runs. Runners with scoring a position is going to be a key in this series, especially with a team that is 3rd in RBIs. So, with all things considered, I understand their starting pitching isn't all that great, and, they aren't starting Shota in the first game, which I understand. But at the end of the day, we haven't been great against left-handed pitching. So we need to find a way. Small ball works, getting the ball in play, moving the runners over, having a plan with what you're going to do with that at bat, runner on first, getting the runner over, making sure you're hitting it to the right side, things of that nature, small ball, things in the fundamentals of all baseball players know. And so just being, and that's really what playoff baseball and what winning a World Series comes down to is the fundamentals, right? Making sure you're getting outs when needed, making sure you're, sacrificing when needed, making sure you're driving in those runs when needed, making sure you're hitting your cutoff man. Those little things, they all add up and they all matter. And hopefully, right, we turn the page with the runners in scoring position, and hopefully, we play small ball and we continue that. And I think we will. We're, obviously leading the league in sacrifices, in that statistic. But we need to find a way to try and get these runners in, because this team in the Chicago Cubs knows how to score runs. So, they're going to put runs up on the board, guys. And, I think we're going to leave our pitchers in there to try and, get some length from our starting pitching, so that our bullpen isn't so taxed. But we need to find a way to limit the run production from the Cubs and find a way to drive these runners in. I think that this series with the Diamondbacks where we swept them was a great preparation series, and us to see, like I said, to see the ball leave the yard, to see the ball, hit the ground and some hits. I think that that's big time for a lot of players' morales, not just for the big time players. But at the end of the day, this is playoff baseball. All the stars are going to shine, and we need to see exactly what is going to happen when it comes to the runners in scoring position production, and just driving in runs in general, like I said. But like I said, guys, it's going to be interesting. We got to stay in tune. So let's get into it. This team, when hot, can be the best team in baseball, the Chicago Cubs. Their pitching is all right, but sometimes the Padres make other teams' pitchers look better, and we have seen that. Padres fans, the Friar Faithful, know that. This team, I have said, when hot, is the best team, but also is one of my dark horses early on to go ahead and win this World Series. I've lamented towards the fact that I've even thought that they've been the best team in baseball at certain points in time during the season. But this Cubs team is very dangerous, guys. I don't want you guys to underestimate this team and thinking that this is going to be a pushover of a wild card series. No, this team is good, and just because they didn't win their division doesn't mean anything. But we need to be focused. We need to be focused and ready to go ahead and play this Chicago Cubs team, because they, like I said, are one of my dark horses coming into this, into this playoffs and throughout this season. So, this is no pushover of a team. We got to put the pedal to the metal, and I think we can. I really think you can. We can. But like I said, it's playoff time, y'all, and now as a new season is here, we have our horse on the mound today in Nick Pivetta versus Matthew Boyd, left-handed pitcher for the Cubs. Boyd 14-8, 3.21 ERA, 179.2 innings pitched, 154 strikeouts in 31 games started. Very solid starter for the Cubs. Last time faced Boyd was back in April for his only 2 starts versus San Diego this season, having going 11 and 1/3 innings pitched, 11 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, and 8 Ks. The Pods are going to have to figure out what to do with Boyd and manage to get through the bullpen, but the Cubs will most likely be starting another lefty versus the Padres in Game 2, as well as Dylan Cease will be starting in Game 2 versus Chicago, which I'm not completely a fan about. I truthfully feel like, Michael King at your disposal. You have Randy Vasquez at your disposal, and, you have a plethora of options, as well as Hugh Darvish. Not to mention, the fact that Hugh can probably start in Game 2. That's just how I feel personally. I feel like he's had a better year, even though he's come off the IL. He's just more in tune lately, and obviously, history shows that Dylan hasn't been great in a Padre uniform during the playoffs. So I'm not hoping that he's going to do good. I'm praying that he's going to do good, because he hasn't shown us anything good in a Padre uniform during the playoffs. So I'm really just hoping, and like I said, there's no shade to Dylan Cease, but whatever you put on the field and whatever you show Padre fans and any fan in general, is what they're going to judge. And so he hasn't done good in a playoff or a Padre uniform during the playoffs. So I'm just hoping for the best. Game 2 is a vital game, whether we need it or not, to move to Game 3. But I'm just, like I said, I'm hoping and praying it's going to be a good start. Like I said, we have Darvish, we have King, and we have Vasquez at our disposal. And I don't know. I feel like, there could have been a better option. But either way, I have optimism in this team going forward, and I know that we can go ahead and get the job done. We can get the job done. And also, here is my lineup, which I think we should probably have. This is just, my lineup that I drew up, and I figured that it would be the best, for us. But Tatis, Merrill, Machado, O'Hearn, Bogey, Sheets, Crone, Fermin, Arise. So Tatis at the 1, Merrill at the 2, Machado at the 3, O'Hearn at the 4, Bogey at the 5, Sheets at the 6, Crone at the 7, Fermin at the 8, and Arise at the 9. So I feel like, truthfully, Arise at the 9 is the best option for this Padres team, especially now, to go ahead and turn that lineup over back to Tatis, right? It doesn't necessarily end, and if you want to quote unquote say it ends at Gavin Sheets, if anything, or Cronenworth. It doesn't really stop. When you flip the lineup and you have to face Arise at the bottom of the lineup, you can't take that at bat off because you know how Luis Arise is. Then you flip it to Tatis. Then you go to Merrill, Machado, and O'Hearn, who have all been hitting the ball pretty well lately. And then you go to Bogarts, who's come off the IL and looked just as good as he was right before he was getting on the IL. So, from that standpoint, and then you get into Sheets, who, on any given night can go ahead and hit one out. Cronenworth had an off and on year, and Fermin is always an interesting at bat, right? He never gives up as well. So this lineup, I feel like, with this strategic way of, putting guys, I truthfully feel is the most success. But we'll see what, Schilt does, and I feel like a lot of people probably think I'm crazy, but having a hitter like Arise at the 9 hole really makes it hard for a lot of teams. It's a little bit old-fashioned baseball, and maybe that's how I'm thinking about this in that sense. But also, too, the fact that Arise hasn't had a lot of production in the 2 hole or even the leadoff spot. I personally feel it's less pressure for him to drop down to that 9 hole. It might hurt his ego a tad, but at the end of the day, we're trying to win a World Series. That is the ultimate goal. But other than that, let's play ball. There are more analytics we can get into, but truthfully, that's just not how baseball works when it comes down to the postseason playoff baseball. The stakes are higher, the stars shine the brightest, and the past is the past. Need to be optimistic regardless of the starters, and maybe hope that Schilt sees the lineup as us fans do, when then again, what do we know? What do we know, guys? So, like I said, hoping for the best, but let's get it, y'all. Let's get it. We are finally here for some Padres playoff baseball, facing the Chicago Cubs today at 12:08. I'll be dialed in at first pitch. Let's get this dub and manifest winning this series, but one game at a time. I'll fill out whether to make another podcast after each game, but hoping that it'll still be in this season, for crying out loud. But maybe I'll make one after each episode. I'm gonna feel it out, y'all. Maybe I'll make it after the series. I don't want to be out of touch, but at the end of the day, we will be having reactions on TikTok for each game, and so go ahead and tune into my TikTok page. But I will see you guys soon, whether it is tomorrow or for another episode of Padres Banter. But I appreciate you guys, and like I said, go Padres, y'all. We got this playoff series against the Chicago Cubs, man. I'm so dialed. I'm so dialed. You see, I got my Padres sweater October ready, even though it's, like I said, it's not October. My birthday's this Thursday, and so that would be a great birthday gift. Go ahead and get in these dubs, you know what I'm saying? So we got to stay in touch. We got to stay in tune. Everything's in the past, but I got a level of optimism that I've never felt before, and it feels right this year. It feels right. But I appreciate you guys tuning into another episode of Padres Banter. And to my Fire Faithful, go Padres. We out.